Committee. It's 8:45, and so if you don't mind, we'll call to order by roll. Paul Grady,
Paul Grady present.
Rob Henry,
Rob Henry present.
Cindy Matheson,
Cindy Matheson present.
Ted Carr,
Ted Carr present.
and Rob Jeffers.
Rob Jeffers present.
Steve Gomer present. Okay, so we've got a full house. That's great. All right. The agenda today is relatively brief. I'm going to take one item out of order because I have a direct question for one of our members that has a bearing, Cindy, on 43 Elm Street. That question is whether or not you can research your notes to find any memorialization of our original vote to purchase 43 Elm, which would have taken place, I am thinking, sometime between April and July of 2022, I believe it would have been 2023.
I think 2023.
2023. And Cindy, I'm asking you because this was just before we started pushing off our minutes to
Saying what?
this is just before we started having our minutes recorded from recordings.
Okay.
And you might have had it in your notes, and that's the only reason I'm asking.
What am I looking for?
Looking for the vote to purchase 43 Elm.
Okay.
Okie dokie.
Dude.
I'm sorry, Cindy, I couldn't make that out.
I can look through my notes.
Okay, great, thank you, much appreciated. Sorry, now on to the regularly scheduled program.
It is a fairly short agenda. First, as always, is public comments for items not on the agenda. I would just like to note that we have Erin here she's the new director for South Shore Habitat. So she wanted to introduce herself and maybe if there was any questions related to the condo association for 43 Elm.
Well, you're gonna have to bring her off mute because we can't hear her this way. Erin, welcome. Thank you very much for the introduction.
Good morning, everyone. Nice to be here.
Well, welcome aboard and congratulations on your new post.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Erin, have you had direct contact with our steering committee?
I have not, no.
Cassandra can introduce you maybe by email to Paul Kears. And I simply bring that up because the steering committee's role, along with the Affordable Housing Trust, is to effectively act as a developer and a cheerleader. So our thinking is that at the moment we are likely to come up short on our 2030 census for meeting the 10% 40B requirement. And we certainly have to get on our horse because there's only 5 years between now and then to build the SHI. And there are some opportunities with respect to developable parcels in town. And so I simply suggest that you get in touch with the steering committee, possibly putting some of your thoughts together could generate at the very least an interesting proposal. Now,
I'd be happy.
Yeah, just be aware that anything that moves forward would have to go through the bid process, et cetera. But we're looking for, at this point, I think we're looking for a fire lit under our butts.
I'd be happy to talk with Paul and anyone else.
Great. I think Paul's a good place to start.
Thank you.
Do we have questions for Erin? Really? Out of this group?
Congratulations on your new job.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's certainly a wonderful organization to be working for. And I'm glad to meet folks like you. You are wonderful partners.
Okay, very kind words.
One question, are you up to speed on 808 Jerusalem?
Am I up to speed on it? Certainly. And if I'm not, I'm happy to find out any information I can't provide today.
Erin, the only question I would have on 808 is I think the last update we had was an expectation of a move-in date in July. Do you know if that's still on track?
It's actually moved up. We're looking to have the certificate of occupancy by mid-May and to be able to close on the houses with the homeowners in June.
Oh, that'd be fantastic.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
That's
And as
really
far
good.
as I know, as of this week, everything is on schedule. The weather has slowed us down a little bit, too cold for volunteers to work in an unheated house. But I think we'll get back on track, and I don't think there's any expectations that that timeline will change at this point.
Super. We much appreciate it. Thank you very much. Okay. I'm sorry, I didn't print the agenda again.
That's okay.
What do we have next?
Next is 43 Elm Street for the LIP application update and then project completion update.
Well, let's start with the LIP application update, which I think turns back to you and Karis.
Yep.
Okay.
So we got some comments from legal from EOHLC that Cassandra sent over to me on Monday that we are working on resolving. That included the question, Cindy, that Rob asked you about memorialization of the vote, although we have a signed deed, so I'm not sure why they need a vote as well, but I'm going to talk to, I have a call into EOHLC to find out what exactly they're looking for and why the deed isn't sufficient. And hopefully a signed deed will, be acceptable. And if not, we'll figure out what we need to get to them. They had a couple of questions on the application. Cassandra's done much of the work. I have one minor question. I just want to check off the boxes with them. I want to get everything correct and make sure they're satisfied before we send it back to them, so that we don't have to go through another round of comments and take more time. So I'm expecting to get everything back to them by the end of this week.
Before we go any further, just if I may, I poll the members. Paul, I'm not sure that you were involved at this point. I think it might have been Diane Kennedy. I could be wrong about that.
That sounds right.
Yeah, but Rob Jeffers, Cindy Matheson, Ted Carr, Rob Henry. May I just ask you to poll your memory for a second for certification of the fact that we did vote in the affirmative, that the date is has to be identified.
Yes,
I believe that's correct. Yep.
Rob, your memory?
yes.
And-
Yes, yeah.
Rob Henry. And
Other Rob.
I as well. So the reason I'm going there is that if we have to reconstruct this by some post-dated minutes,
Right.
that in fact it's on public record that that the recall of the trust is that in fact we did vote in the affirmative. I believe we can identify the date of the meeting simply by going back and tracing the emails that had gone back and forth, if in fact we don't have some record of it already. Okay.
Yep.
Looking at my notes right now, going back, and it wasn't 23, it was 22. Is what it looks like, because I have some notes here, my scribbles,
Mhm.
that have 43 Elm Street listed at the top. So it was, and that was dated 8/25/22. I'll have to look through them to see if there's particular votes. I remember going through this once before, finding the calculation for the purchase and what we could resell it for.
You realize you are our institutional librarian, you know that?
Yeah, I don't know why I just,
Thank goodness.
yeah.
Don't
I'm sure,
burn-
I know we voted on this. Tom Mead was with us at the time and we certainly voted on it.
Okay, so don't burden yourself with it at this moment. I'll follow up from the meeting with you. And
Okay.
see what we can find. But at the very least, we know that we have a pathway, Karis, to create minutes after the fact by identifying what meeting date this would have been. And I do know that it took place in a regular meeting. We wouldn't have had a special meeting for it.
Yep, that's fine, terrific. And, if we don't even need them because you would have voted and signed the deed. So let me just confirm with them what they're looking for and why
Right, okay, fair enough.
before you go digging too far, Cindy. And Cindy, I do have your email. I can't access it right now, but I have you forwarded the email about the price calculation to Cassandra and Steve and I. So I have that in my file. So if that's the date, we have that as well.
I'm sure we would have voted on it before we got that price calculation, or maybe it could have been around the same time,
It
because we would have
probably would have
wanted
been
that
around the same
information
time.
to make the decision.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay, I'm sorry. The second item on this was the 43 Elm update.
For project completion,
Yep.
which the reconstruction is complete.
Everything's complete.
Yep.
Certificate of occupancy in hand.
We got the CO.
Marketing program has initiated? Or no, we're still waiting for the state to bless it?
Yes.
And that hasn't happened at all.
Correct.
When-
That's what Karis was just talking about.
That's what I was just talking about.
Right.
The last questions from they got slowed down reviewing our application because of the end of the year and the holidays. It was reviewed internally, then it went to legal. Legal came back with these questions
You guys wonder why there's a housing shortage?
that I'm dealing with. And that's why I want to talk to them this week, why I called yesterday, just to make sure we're all on the same page before we send the application back with the revisions they've requested, so that we don't go through another round of this.
How, assuming that they're satisfied with the documentation, do we have an expectation on time frame?
Legal will have approved it at that point, so it should be any day now after that, in terms of the approval. Once we get that approval and listing, then we can get going on the marketing plan.
Okay.
And that's gonna take several months. So springtime,
Yeah, but it's typically, isn't it a 90-day?
Yeah.
Statutory period?
yes.
Right.
Yep,
Okay.
90-day period, so, similar to 808, we could hopefully have somebody selected and in, hopefully before summer.
Yeah, no, it's not only getting the unit occupied, it's just it's the morass getting people to sign off on documentation such that we can start the marketing process.
Right.
That's all. All right.
Plus it's costing money. Every month we don't have this.
Well, the carrying cost for HOA has been modest, although it's gone up quite a bit with respect to hazard insurance on the master policy. And one of the things that suddenly occurs to me is we probably should be carrying an HO6 on it until we sell it. So that's something that the trust should deal with immediately. I'll make a quick call to a couple of brokers and ask to get an HO6 on it. And it's important because now that the improvements have been made, we want to cover the walls in.
Right,
So the trust as a fiduciary entity should look to protect its investment before it transfers it. Everybody got that?
Yep.
Very much like hazard insurance on your house. Well, we want to do the same thing, even though it might only be for 4 or 5 months. The master policy insurance went through the roof because of the proximity to water. And that is really not so much about potential flood damage as it is about potential wind damage. And as you probably have known from I've seen from the headlines, hazard insurance, P&C insurance has gone up magnificently on private properties. And especially so in those areas that FEMA maps consider to be high risk, right? So 43 Elm is a quarter of a mile from the harbor. Guess what? It's in a high velocity zone. So we couldn't even cover it through local insurance companies because local insurance companies wouldn't take it. Even one that's had the policy for the last, I think, decade. They've had to go out what's called supplemental lines. And basically Lloyd's of London has picked it up kindly for a cool $5,500 for the year. That's the master policy. Now, last but not least, and this is just an item to bring up, Cassandra, I think we have to figure out how to deal with this. The town owns a small space in the basement, which they use for storage of records. I believe, actually, it's the sewer department.
Yes.
And Aaron, this is gonna kick back to you because go figure, South Shore is still the president.
The president.
of the HOA.
yep,
I have no idea how we deal with this, but ultimately, I think the HOA, you'd probably like to get that gum off your shoe And I would imagine it would make some sense for the HOA to be independently run. And it's hard to be independently run if you've got a third party owning a small chunk of the property. That I don't even know if the town pays into the HOA.
They do.
Okay, so what I'd love to do is investigate how the town might cede that small piece of the property back to the HOA. Or the HOA looks to buy it, or maybe unit 2 looks to buy it, right, funded by us. And just simply rent it back for storage to the town. Where I'm going with it is I'd like to make sure that the deeds are clean.
I don't know if unit 2 would be able to do that as an affordable.
Right,
Maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe it ends up being owned as part of common property in the HOA.
right, and the HOA has to
That's
take
fine.
care of it.
But what I'd like to do is get that, get the uninvited guest out of there, get the town out of there.
So they don't own it, they just rent it.
They just-
Remove the ownership
Right,
piece and move to rental only.
right. And by the way, this is not being vindictive. I'm just trying to
Oh,
think
yeah.
ahead and be clean with the property.
Yep.
Okay,
And so unit 1 obviously has storage. Unit 2 has storage.
Yep.
And then there's the piece that the town has separately, which sounds like it should best be a common area, but having to, and maybe the Affordable Housing Trust funds it, but then you're funding private entity with respect to unit 1, and that's,
then maybe the
That's an
town,
issue.
maybe the town looks to
Just
sell
donate
it to the HOA.
for
and-
$1.
Yeah, and as long as we own the unit while the town's looking to do that, then I would think that we could fund our share of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes more sense.
The question I have is, it's not a big area.
No.
And
Nope.
why is it necessary for the sewer department to have this area? I mean, it's just been there.
I'm simply trying to look at this without complicating it further because eventually what the town ought to be doing is centralizing records,
Right.
right?
Well,
That's a
why
diff-
can't we do that front before we try to sell this place?
Ted, you want to tell them how much fun it is to work in town hall?
It's really fun. Not at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It should,
Well, the things have changed, though. They've expanded offices out to King Street
it should
and all
happen.
this stuff. And why can't the sewer department just take this stuff and put
I can't tell you,
in somebody's garage for crying out loud?
but the first thing I can tell you.
Well, they can't put it in somebody's
I'm-
garage.
Facetious.
I know.
In order to make it happen, the first thing you have to do is say, I've got control over the space. Right? Can't say that if you don't own it.
Yeah.
Once you own it, you can evict. Right? And I'm not saying eviction as a really nasty thing, but rather to say, let's clean up the mess. Look, the town owns this small parcel going back on the history of the property. It's not
Right.
worth getting into in this meeting, but ultimately, it was a matter of expedience for the town at the time when quite literally you didn't have a computer system, couldn't digitize records, and you had no space to store it.
You still have to keep hard copies of most records under the Municipal Retention Act anyway. It is an absolute
Right,
old-fashioned world. So, because you never know down the road whether a digitized record can actually be accessed, and some of these records are required to be kept forever. I have no idea what the records are that the sewer department has, and that's something the town is gonna have to figure out and have their council advise on it.
right. But that's, in any case, I want to see if we can get that in process.
Now, and then I have another question. If we have all this, because it falls within the
equipment
flood
and-
zone. Because, wait a minute, Ted, just,
Ted, did you have a
Oh,
comment?
sorry. Go ahead. No, I was just going to say, my recollection is mostly equipment and not records down there, but I haven't been in the basement in a bit.
yeah, I don't think it's records either, but I can't be positive.
Yeah.
There are? Okay.
Are there records? Okay.
Right, but Ted, there are other things in there. It's not just files and folders and stuff,
Yeah.
right?
There
Yeah,
is.
so-
That's correct. Yeah. Looks like
So that's what
pumps,
I'm
there's a couple of pumps and things like that down there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
The other question I have is if we have found that this falls under the flood zone and all this exorbitant insurance, how is a new tenant in the affordable category going to maintain this kind of insurance?
Step back for a second. Right now, look, if you rent it, you're still gonna have to maintain the insurance,
Right.
right? You're gonna do it through rent.
But we're trying to sell it though, too.
I get it. Right now, if you broke it down on a 50-50 basis, which is, let's just say for the sake of argument, is the way it's gonna work. $2,500 is going to be apportioned to each unit. Is that right? 2,500? 2,750, apportioned to each unit for the master policy, right? And as unfortunate as that sounds, that's a little bit more than $100 per month, right? Not inexpensive, but you're buying a piece of property for, at the maximum, $280,000. I believe that in the calculations that go forward to the state, and I'm sorry, I can't keep up with the alphabet soup now, but what used to be DHCD, the cost of insurance is puzzled in. And you make a very good point. But the fact is, we can't control future costs, much as we'd like to try. We can control current costs, or we'd like to think we can. But we can't control future cost, and insurance is a variable which, I'm sorry, we can't make promises to anybody about, including ourselves. So outside of that, I think the smart thing to be thinking about doing is recognizing that hazard insurance is going to disfavor in the Northeast, any place close to an ocean or where wind damage could become a primary issue. So think close to a shoreline or on a hilltop close to a shoreline. All right. Catastrophe models have become pretty slick, and they can get down to the 4-digit zip code for designing this. And I don't suspect for a moment that you're going to see anything less than that. All right, any other questions on this topic?
May I jump in for just a moment?
Go ahead, Aaron.
I would like, you brought up a moment ago the clarity between the units and the management of the HOA, and I'd like to support that exploration of the working relationships between the units. I think we at South Shore Habitat for Humanity are still managing the checkbook and those decisions, but we are no longer owners in the property and really don't have sort of any say in those decisions anymore. And we would love to move these units towards a self-management model if that's possible.
Well, I'll tell you what, there is a need for a property manager.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and I'm on a board of my condominium association here in Cohasset. It's only 10 units in the association, and finding a property manager is very difficult.
I can appreciate that.
And ultimately, the role of the property manager is exactly what you're doing now, paying bills. One of the things I think I'd like you to consider, meaning South Shore Habitat, is maintaining the role for the purposes of independent bill paying and oversight of the checkbook, right? For a fee. In other words, conducting the role of property manager, but with respect to an understanding that out of the property at 43 Elm Street, the HOA would vote to be paying you a regular monthly or annual fee for the purposes of maintaining the finances. And if that's a role that you might be interested in as an organization, let's have a conversation about it. I'd like to be able to hand this property off, sell the property, and make sure that the property and the management of it is viable. Some of the when you have 2 units, you have a great likelihood of areas of disagreement between the 2 unit owners. And I'm not saying that there will be that, but you have a likelihood of it. And one of those areas that can crop up pretty quickly is surrounding the checkbook. And that's why I asked you. I'm happy to, we would be happy to put out a request for proposal. But I can assure myself comfortably that the likelihood of response for property managers for a 2-unit condominium association is not going to happen. We're not going to get response. And I'm thinking about it from your perspective. You know, it's an income producing activity if it's something that South Shore might be interested in. I mean, it certainly would add to a regular source of inflows.
How are you, Sarah?
So, not asking for an answer, I'm just putting it in your lap and asking you to consider it.
Well, something else to consider along that line, Steve, is maybe that's one of the reasons why the town retains ownership of its basement, so that you have an HOA of 3 entities instead of just 2, and then you have a tiebreaker.
Maybe so,
Just a thought.
maybe so.
Good point.
So in any case, that's a topic, Aaron, that literally has just arisen. It is not something that the trust has discussed, certainly not something that we ever discussed with South Shore. But just give it some thought.
We will absolutely consider it. And just so you know, I'm meeting with all 3 of the trust entities in the next couple of weeks. So we'll be having the same kind of conversations with each of you.
Okay, great.
Yep.
Super. Much appreciated. All right, moving on. Oh, I'm sorry, Paul, you had something?
No, I'm good. Sorry.
Okay.
I actually, before we move on, Erin, I just wanted to check and see, now that Noreen has left, is the fire escape on the exterior of 43 Elm still moving forward with its repairs? I know when I had last talked to her, she was looking for opinions on the 3 quotes that you guys had gotten. And then I just didn't hear anything after that. And since she's left, I just wanted to double check on that.
So just so you know, Noreen has not entirely left. She is working for us on a very, very limited part-time basis, but is still
Okay.
advising all of the projects that are underway, even though she has started her new position. For those of you who might not be familiar, Noreen has transferred to the Cape Cod affiliate. So she's still working for Habitat for Humanity. Noreen and I are, she's just doing a remote advisory type thing, still checking her emails and advising me on the various projects. So she's still involved. To answer your question about the fire escape, yes, we received 3 quotes on the fire escape and distributed them to you all. The actual decision on fire escape and how to handle it would need to be decided on by the condo trust, not by you trust. And as far as I know, that conversation hasn't happened between the 3 entities. So
Okay.
Okay.
Can I just add, because I looked at those quotes and they're vastly different among the 3. And I had asked, Cassandra and I talked about it. And one of them that looked okay was obviously not any kind of amount of detail. So who is going to ask this company that quoted that to provide more detail on their quotation? And then there were 3 quotes. 2 were similar, but we need more detail on one, and the other one was like 3 times higher than the other 2. Therefore, that's a total bogus kind of a quote. They just threw a number at us. So is any of that kind of discussion going on about revisiting these people who are quoting to get a little more definity of what they're doing?
I think
Aaron.
the question is whether us South Shore Habitat for Humanity has been able to go back and chase down more details.
I think that is the question, Aaron.
Okay. I'm happy to put it on my list. I have been a little inundated with staff turnover and having to rehire positions. And going back to acquire more detail on these 3 quotes has not been something that I've had time to do up until now. But I can put it on my to-do list, and I can let you know when I'm able to make contact with the 3 contractors.
Yeah, I think
She can talk, we can talk offline. We don't have to talk about it
Yeah.
now in front of everybody, but if Sandra has my number, and because I've looked at them, and I can maybe help you shortcutting this thing by telling you what the situation is, what you need to ask.
Be happy to talk to you.
Yeah, I think it might be that we end up having to jumpstart it. My question, because it's a private condo association, we don't have to put this up, do we?
We did already.
No, I'm talking about a formal
A
request.
formal request. No,
No, because it's not the
It's-
trust that's.
And what was,
sole
Right.
what was the
decider.
range?
I think it's
I haven't seen them.
4,000 to
4,500
15,000.
was one, 5,000, the one that looked good, but there was just one number. I don't like a quote that doesn't, doesn't.
Right.
And the other one was like $13,000, and that was totally
Yeah.
out of whack.
So Aaron, the real question is, one of itemization, because I am certain that, and again, here's an example where an HOA looks at it and says, yeah, it's on the exterior of the building, but I'm unit one, I'm on the ground floor. It's of no consequence to me outside of insurance costs. Right? So the reason I think we want to know is I'm anticipating within that argument that there is a need to get it done no matter what. And before we spend money, we just, have that fiduciary duty to figure out exactly what we're spending it on. And so if $4,000 is a realistic price, we'll know that by the itemization that goes into the bid. On the other hand, if the more accurate price is higher, we're going to figure that out as well. And we need to get, I suspect this is not going to hold up the sale, but it needs to get done. It's not something that we would ever want to have fail in an emergency. So we'd want to make sure that we're handing over a piece of property at closing that has checked all the boxes with respect to building codes and standards and safety. So anyway, we're looking to expedite it. We don't want to front run your efforts. So if your contacts exist within within the three contractors, what we're asking for is just some itemization on what they intend to do. And once we get it, I believe we can probably act very quickly to vote for approval. All right, any other comments on this?
That ends your regular items. Anything else is administrative. So you have minutes approval from November 13th, December 11th, and January 2nd.
Stop right there. Okay. Have you all read the minutes?
Yes,
Okay. Are there any comments on the minutes?
no,
May I have a vote to approve the minutes for the November, December, and January meeting?
I moved the
Uh,
minutes.
Hold on. I may have it wrong, Ted.
No,
Okay.
you have it right. I just wanted to confirm that the vote is to approve the minutes with the edits that I had put in there.
Thank you.
Suggest that.
Thank you, Cindy. So would you mind revising the motion?
I moved the minutes as edited, sorry, go ahead.
Would move to approve the minutes for those 3 dates as edited by Cassandra.
Second,
That was a second, Mr. Grady?
yes,
Okay.
sir.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll go ahead by roll again. Paul Grady,
Paul Grady, aye.
Cindy Matheson,
Cindy Matheson, I.
Rob Jeffers.
Rob Jeffers, aye.
Oh, thanks. Ted Carr,
Ted Carr, aye.
Rob Henry,
Rob Henry, aye.
Steve Gomer, aye. Okay, minutes approved. Cindy Matheson,
So I just wanted to follow up with the minutes. It's been a godsend to have Christine's help to get the minutes on board. And I think they will probably provide the record going farther back for what we're looking for related to 43 Elm. But it only came to my attention in December, and that was the last meeting that we had together, that we've been approving these minutes, looking over them, and they've been perfect. But I didn't realize that Cassandra was having to take a lot of extra time to go through and edit them, as you can see in the attachments that were sent out prior to the meeting. So I just wanted to request to our vendor to just give them an extra look over, one more round of proofread, so that we can take that burden off of Cassandra, who's covering, I don't know how many committees, just going forward to be sure that particularly the votes obviously are the most critical, and that the names of the people who are involved and any other specifics that are on the recordings that relate to town government particularly are accurate. And then we can move forward in completing them with
Okay,
approvals.
Cindy brings up a point of, that I'd like all of your consideration on. And that is very simply to put together a request from the trust, as Cindy has outlined, to our minutes recorder. And that request is to, frankly, is to submit minutes that have been proofed at least once in addition to the initial draft. Frankly, it's very simply saying, hey, would you mind terribly earning your money? All right, and the basis here is, as Cindy points out, and neither, although I didn't recognize and should have, that Cassandra effectively has spent the better part of half an hour or more on each set of minutes, not only correcting for accuracy, but spelling, misspelling, brevity, right? And the meetings are recorded, so it's not that difficult to get it right. And I would like to put forward a very brief and direct request to our minutes recorder that, in fact, we what we receive has been looked over twice, not just once. Are you, so that's a request. I'm asking you whether or not you're in favor of such a thing, because interestingly enough, this is being recorded and it would be seen by our minutes recorder directly.
Well, I can say I'm in favor, right? Are we gonna go around the table?
Thank you, Paul. You just did. And Cindy, I think I know where you stand, and Rob Jeffers.
Yeah, no, I'd agree. And I mean, I know that we also, our meetings aren't that long, and I know we pay a minimum of 4 hours, for the minutes. So I think it's reasonable to ask that there's, some due diligence on that.
Okay,
agree.
Okay. Rob Henry?
Yes, I agree. That's a good point, where we have the minimum.
Okay, and Steve Gomer, aye as well. So let the message go forward. If there are any questions, I'm happy to field them directly. All right, next item on the administrative side.
Next item on the administrative side is Christine Bareford's most recent invoice in the amount of $325 for the September, October, and December minutes.
Okay, well, in light of the last conversation, I would entertain a motion to pay these in consideration of the previous request we have made of City Beresford.
Agreed. So moved.
And a motion?
Yep.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. Once again, going around the room, Rob Jeffers,
Rob Jeffers, aye.
Ed Carr,
Ed Carr, aye.
Paul Grady,
Paul Grady, aye.
Rob Henry,
Rob Henry, aye.
Cindy Matheson,
Matheson, aye.
Steve Gomer, aye. That motion is approved unanimously.
Excellent. Next item would be MHTL invoice in the amount of $5,637.50.
Forget her. Let's move on. All right. All right. And this invoice covers what?
This
The
is
closing, the reason the bill is high is because this covers the closing for the parcel.
25 Heather Drive.
Thank you, Heather Drive.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. And then just work to get the LAU application in review of what South Shore Habitat had done. It's mostly the closing.
Okay. Questions? Hearing none. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. One more time around the room, starting with the motioner. Paul Grady,
Paul Grady, aye.
Rob Henry,
Rob Henry, I.
Cindy Matheson,
Cindy Matheson, I.
Rob Jeffers,
Rob Jefferson.
Ted Carr,
Ted Carr, aye.
Gomer, aye.
That's it.
All right, before we go, I just, a note. Rob Jeffers will, join us for the March meeting, after which he is, resigning from the board. Rob, a reminder, I'm sorry to be so
Mhm.
administrative about it, but you'll need to write a letter of resignation,
Sure.
okay? Rob has a new professional role that has him commuting quite a bit. And, to New York, no less.
Yep.
And, it just leaves him with very little time. So we thank you for your years, both on the steering committee and here. And personally, I'm sorry to see you go, but I certainly do understand it.
Yeah, no, it's been a pleasure.
Cindy Matheson.
I'm just curious, has the select board given any further consideration to additional members being appointed to the Housing Trust?
I can tell you this, we're heading up, Cindy, on a full-blown effort to start attracting people. As a matter of fact, we talked about it last night. It's getting people, we've got about 60 openings, I believe.
Yeah, I'm sure it's not just us.
Oh, we're looking at ways to even incentivize. What's going to make it attractive? Narrowing meeting times. It's just that I'd say the population has changed. We've got a lot more working couples and things like that. And I don't think people are that well aware, but we're doing the fairs. We're going to get people, but it's just a matter of what's going to make it attractive. You know, we hear some of the pushback, like, okay, a meeting go till 12 o'clock at night or something like that. And I've got to be up at 4. So it's just, we're trying to get people in and also maybe narrow the scope if we have to stretch out, say, narrowing agendas just to make it more attractive and palatable for people who have kids, who have skin in the game, and we all do because we live here. So we're working on it. I can tell you this: it's an agenda item.
Gotta let them know this is one of the best committees in town to work on. Most productive, always working toward a positive end, and very satisfying.
No, it's a fantastic committee.
And yeah, the meetings are under an hour and they're on Zoom if you want.
This one will fill up quick.
Okay.
We hope. Cindy, actually, that's a thought. We've got a couple of communication endeavors and channels, I believe. It's worth using them. Maybe, especially maybe intersecting with who is it in town hall that's now in charge of this sort of stuff?
Kevin?
Kevin. Probably worth getting a hold of Kevin and finding out how we get the message out there that I don't care about the rest of the committees. I care about this one.
Mhm.
And that we've got 3 openings coming up. So we need professional, serious people who are interested in getting things done as opposed to just getting together.
Mhm. Does anybody on the committee know Joe Regan?
Yes.
Yeah, you might want to talk to him. He's expressed interest in the past. I did mention that there were openings, but if he got a call asking him to apply, I think there's a good chance. He used to work for Habitat for Humanity, so he does have some experience there. He's doing something slightly different now, but he has expressed interest in the past. If you reach out to him, Ted.
Rob,
Yep.
Rob, give me a call as well. Maybe give me some background on him, and I'm happy to call after Ted does. So
Yeah, will do.
all right, folks, that wraps up our agenda. So I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Can I ask just a quick question, Steve, before we adjourn? It's Andrews Cassandra. Cassandra, I got the email. When are you available to kind of get that signed? And I'm sorry, I just don't have it in front of me.
So Tracy actually has it because it has to be done in front of a
All right.
notary.
All right,
So presumably she's there whenever.
all right, that's all I need to know. I can swing by there at a point in time. Thanks so much.
Although before we go on to a motion for adjournment, Paul, are you the only outstanding signature needed?
Last I had checked, I think it was Paul, Ted, and Rob Jeffers, unless either of you have come in and signed it since last week.
No.
So what do I need to do? Just go into the town hall and go to who?
See Tracy.
Go up to the
Tracy?
selectman's office, see
Yep.
Tracy. You'll sign the deed for Mill Lane, the Mill Lane parcel in front of her. She'll notarize, same for
All right,
you.
and
Tim.
she's there today, right?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and we
alright.
need your we need your signatures to get the deed filed.
I'll get
I'll go do that today.
it done today myself.
I,
All right.
I can also go today, Steve.
All right,
Thank you.
much appreciated.
Sandra, once you get the original, let me know and we'll get it recorded.
Perfect.
All right, motion to
Send
adjourn.
The original to me.
So moved.
Second,
Thank you. Motion in a second. One more time around the room. Paul Grady,
All Grady, aye.
Rob Henry,
Rob Henry, aye.
Cindy Matheson,
Cindy Matheson, I.
Rob Jeffers,
Rob Jeffers, aye.
Ted Carr.
Ed Carr, aye.
And before I go, Aaron, one more time, thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much. It was nice to meet you all.
You too.
And you. Steve Gomer, aye. We are adjourned. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Yep.